Linda.
Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
Good. It is a little overcast here on the east coast of Florida with some intermittent downpours. So, what's it like out there?
It is going to be 84 degrees today and sunny. Tomorrow it's going to be 88, and then it's in the 70s all next week. So it is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, wow. Cool. We have a really good program today, and we have tons of information. And we also have a guest, Diane Murtha, and she's going to talk to us about challenge quilts.
Oh, challenge quilts. That's exciting. Now, let's see. We have some interesting news that we just caught out early or late last week. Comic-Con, the big comic convention in San Diego, announced that they will be holding an in-person event at the San Diego Convention Center in the end of November on Thanksgiving weekend.
I better get my costume ready.
Right. Well, that brings me to a good point. Did you know we're gonna have information for the International Sewing Arts Festival on costuming and cosplay?
Really?
Really? So that's in January in person. So if Comic-Con can be in person, that means Road to California will be in person in January as well, which is really exciting. I've got an update on that as well.
Yeah.
We've been really busy signing up vendors.
Cool. Oh my.
I know.
I'm so excited.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be so great. And we're also going to be doing It's So Road live.
Uh-oh.
From the in-person quilt show.
And maybe we'll just have some random passerby guests.
You never know. But we're getting ready back for in-person, and we're gonna do this whole big program of It's So Road. We're really excited. That's your COVID update. Oh, and Road at Home, Linda. What big thing is going on this weekend or tomorrow for Road at Home?
Tomorrow, registration opens, and that is at 8 o'clock Pacific time, and that means 11 o'clock Eastern time. So There's a lot of really good classes. We worked super hard to get you a nice selection with some super teachers, including me, and so you want to be ready to get your registration in.
Absolutely. And Roundabout 2.0 is coming back. So we're going to have, and the cool thing about it this time is we were able to get pre-recorded videos done, which will eliminate some of the technical issues we had last time, which means we'll be able to roll straight through and get you some great learning material in that 2.5 hour process. And yes, we are ready for in-person too. You have no idea how good it felt all the last 2 weeks to be actually planning for in-person quilt shows again. Oh, it felt fantastic.
My flight will be ready. I'll be out there.
Absolutely. So, Linda, who's our guest today?
Our guest is Diane Murtha, and she's coming to us from her recently flooded house in Iowa, and she'll explain about that. She was down here in Florida, and she's going to talk to us today about some challenge quilts.
Oh, challenge quilts. And I bet you we have something to talk about also about Road to California in person with challenge quilts, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. Well, let's get Diane on here. Hi,
Hello,
Diane.
everybody.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. Yes, so I was in Florida. I'm actually in Iowa, but in my RV right now because there's 20 plus fans and dehumidifiers going in the house to dry everything out. So way too noisy to do this from there. So I'm in the RV. I wish I was still in Florida. But
Yeah, it's
What's
beautiful.
the weather like there?
Well, Matt, that's a good question. It's nothing like California or Florida. This morning, it was 36 degrees with a wind chill of 23. So the sun is shining, but it is very blustery and cold.
Ooh, I think we'll let you keep that weather.
Yeah, I had to dig out my wool sweaters and socks again after getting back from Florida.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Oh my gosh, yeah. A shock to your system.
It's a
right.
big. So Diane, what's a challenge quilt? And what does that like consist of for somebody who doesn't know that?
Sure. Well, just a little background about me first. I've been sewing for about 50 years. I started quilting 30 years ago, and about 10 years ago, I started doing challenge quilt projects. So there's formal and informal challenges. Often quilt guilds will host a challenge. The more formal ones are hosted by individuals or organizations. So usually there are some requirements, either using a certain kind of fabric or a fabric packet, or a theme, some kind of limitations, and then usually a size limitation or size requirement, and a deadline. So I did my first challenge about 10 years ago. I do not have a design degree or an art degree, so I had no idea what I was doing. But I did 2 in a row, and I really liked it. It just seemed like it opened up so many more opportunities for me. I didn't have to search for the perfect fabric. I could make the fabric. I could hand dye the fabric. I could paint the fabric. And same with the pattern. I didn't have to find the right pattern. I could create it myself. Now, I had oftentimes delusions of grandeur, and I also had many epic fails, but I also had some pretty good successes. And you always learn something by the challenge limitation. And the limitations also incentivize creativity. I was perfectly happy going along doing my traditional quilting. I had my go-to methods, and it was fine. But I have totally reinvigorated my love of quilting since I started challenging myself with these projects. So I have done many guild level challenges, and also probably 24 formal organized challenges.
Now, a challenge quilt for people that are just starting their quilting journey. Some guilds do challenge quilts, and then there's a round robin. There's a difference between them.
Yes. So a round robin starts with a center, and then oftentimes you pass it off to someone else who builds the next border around it, and then it's handed off to someone else who builds another border around it. Oftentimes the challenge has a theme, and then the limitations or the requirements. You must use this fabric, or it has to be this size, or it has to follow a theme. And then you make it yourself based on those rules and challenge limitations, and turn it in on that specific time.
So what do you do with these challenge quilts when you're done with them?
That's a good question, Matt. So I know people who will make a quilt just for the purposes of the challenge. I like to have a purpose for it when it's done. For example, I participated in the Cherrywood Fabrics Challenge when they did Van Gogh, and it was inspired. My inspiration was a hand-drawn picture from my nephew. He was about 7 years old at the time. So the quilt I created for the Cherrywood Challenge will now go to Charlie. Now, the funny story about that is the quilt wasn't accepted into the Cherrywood exhibit. But my nephew is just ecstatic that I'm going across the country showing his hand-drawn artwork, crayon drawing to everybody. And influenced by my brother now, my nephew has asked me for royalties. So I also did a challenge for Machine Quilting magazine when it was still around, and it was for their 10-year anniversary, and they wanted the challenge requirement was tell us how we've inspired you. Well, I had read an article in Machine Quilting about Susan Carlson and her fabric collage technique that inspired me to buy her book, which inspired me to take her 2-day class in Dulles at our, when I lived in Virginia, the quilt show there. So I did, my niece was just graduating from dental school, and I asked her, you know, I'd like to make you a quilt for either your lobby or your dental office. And so she says, I want a giant tooth. So that's what I did using the Susan Carlson technique. But I always try to have an idea of where the quilt will go when I'm done, who might I donate it to, or what will I be able to do with it when it's done. I like to have a secondary purpose.
So you also had referenced, you know, the process of getting a quilt into a challenge. Are they juried? Do you want to kind of talk about the jurying process, kind of how that works for challenges? Because they do differ a little bit from like getting juried into, say, you know, like the Road Quilt Contest.
Yes. So they all have their judges lined up. It used to be you would mail your quilt somewhere to be judged and juried in. Now, based on time and cost and everything, many challenges are just asking for pictures to be sent in. And they have sometimes differing things that they're looking for, depending on what the challenge requirements are. Of course, always original design is important, workmanship, and then the use of and the application of the theme. So how well you incorporated the theme, or how well you incorporated their required fabrics. And then, you know, they have their judging, and, you know, they're just like any show. They have their requirements and what they are looking for. Every judge, you know, kind of looks at things a little bit differently. It's subjective. And we don't, as participants, we don't always know exactly, you know, what they like or don't like about it. We just get a thumbs up or thank you anyway.
Wow. So
Jill's asking if you have a photo of the Van Gogh challenge that you did.
I do. How best do I show that?
Jillian's going to hop and say something right now because she's the back end person of all this.
Is it on your website, Diane?
I believe it is.
All right, Jillian will find it on your website right
it looks,
now.
Yeah, it's called Van Gogh-y. It looks like a smiling, like a smiley face in blues and yellow, a big smiley face. So
I think it's that one right there, Jillian.
And so Van Gogh, the challenge requirements were you had to use the cherry wood blue Van Gogh fabric packet, and it had to be inspired by Van Gogh, not a duplication of one of his work. And so I studied about Van Gogh, and it's always good when you're doing a challenge to kind of do a little bit of research. I learned that Van Gogh had this little trademark kind of short little paintbrush strokes. And yep, there's Van Gogh-y. So my nephew's little crayon marks reminded me of this, of Van Gogh's paint strokes. So this, my nephew's picture a emoji, and I thought, okay, what would Van Gogh? How would he do a 21st century self-portrait emoji style? So this is very simplistic, but I included the required fabrics, and you know, I did use sunglasses to get a little depth and reflection in the eyes, and then the little bandage on the ear so that you recognized it as Van Gogh.
Do they normally do challenges normally have like entry fees associated with entering your quilt?
Yes, yeah. So they will have an entry fee, and you do an artist statement. Usually that all happens at the time you're ready to show the pictures of your quilt. So similar to, you know, Road to California, you do your online entry, you pay your fee, you do your artist statement and send your pictures in, and then you wait to hear if the quilt is accepted. Now, sometimes it's a two-step process. They'll accept it by photo, and then when they get the quilt in, they'll look at it again, and if it's, you know, if the photograph was deceiving, then it will not be included. Now, they often have a traveling exhibit included with it, and it can travel up to 2 years, because last year was a little wonky with COVID and things being canceled. Several of my quilts are being extended and traveling further, you know, beyond the 2-year limit. And then there may also be a book associated with it, and the publisher has a second or separate jurying process. So your quilt may be accepted into the exhibit to travel, but it may not be accepted into the book. That's a separate process. So one of my quilts it was a Donna DeSoto challenge inspired by endangered species. I did the cheetah for the book. It was included in the exhibit. It was one of the selected quilts to show at Houston in must have been 2019. Yeah, 2019. And then it also went to Paducah and was at the National Quilt Museum last year. Oh, there, yes, there's my cheetah. I
actually think we had that exhibit at Road to California too.
Oh, yes, you probably did. Yes. So I used the Susan Carlson fabric collage technique again. It was the first time that I used the like a faux leather piping, but I had previously not done eyes or human faces or any faces. So this was my first animal face and the second set of eyes that I did. And the biggest compliment for me on this one was people would say as they walked across the room, they felt like Cheetah's eyes were following them. So I liked, I thought that was a nice compliment. Now, this is one that I will probably either donate to a grade school, or we have a very small little zoo here in the Quad City area. I would consider donating this to them when I get her back. Yeah. So the quilts travel, and then there's potentially a book. And, you know, that's always fun. You know, you get the list of where all the quilt is traveling and you get to go see it. For me, every challenge, I learn something new. And that's what inspires me, is that I learn something new every time I do a challenge. And yes, there's limitations and, you know, it sparks creativity, but it really reinvigorates me in my love of quilting. And so I would say, don't be afraid of challenge limitations. Yeah, you know, it might not be a fabric that's your favorite color, but try using it, you know. And usually the size of the quilt challenge project is relatively small. So, you know, you're only devoting a limited amount of time and effort into it. It's not like you're making a king-size bed quilt. So don't be afraid of trying a challenge. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Every time you try a different technique, you learn something, even if it's, I never want to do that again. I did one challenge for our local fair. It was for 100-year anniversary, and it was a 12-inch block, finished quilted block. That's not on my website, but I knew in 12 inches I had to make a big impact in a small area. So I modified a paper piecing pattern and reduced it in size. The quadrants were like smaller than my hand. So I learned that I never want to do paper piecing that small again. But it won 7th place, 7th out of 10 places. And so that was nice. It served its purpose. Those blocks were actually donated, and all of the blocks they received were incorporated into a quilt for charity. Kind of nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're there in Iowa in your RV.
Yes.
Are you gonna travel anymore, or you're there for a while?
Oh, Linda, that's a good question. Well, our son's wedding reception was canceled last year because of COVID, so we'll head to the East Coast around 4th of July for that. We hope to go to Maine for some hiking. I'm, fully embraced Zoom, so I'm doing a lot of Zoom lectures, and a few maybe in person, depending on how that goes. And we do plan to go back to Florida next winter, but who knows? We have our house on wheels, and we can travel, so we're happy to do so. And if an opportunity comes up, then we travel a bit. Can I tell you about some things that I've got? Some exciting things coming up.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, I first went to the Family Motor Coach Association in RV Rally in Perry, Georgia, earlier this month, and taught for the first time in person. It was 4 days of teaching, and that was very good. They were very COVID, careful and everything. Everybody was very respectful of that. So that was good. So just a shout out to the RV quilting buddies out there. I have in the Art Quilting Studio magazine, the spring issue, I have 2 quilts. My 3-dimensional technique flower quilts are featured in there in their patchwork section. In American Quilter, in the May issue, which I haven't even received yet, but it's digitally out and people are receiving it, I have an article in there about my aquarium quilt, which is English paper piecing, but with an art quilt twist.
Good.
Yeah, and for anybody in the Midwest, I have 2 articles coming out in the All Iowa Shop Hop magazine. And then later this fall in Art Quilting Studio, I'll have another quilt featured in there on their last page.
Good for you.
Wow, you've been busy.
Well, things were kind of locked down with COVID, and no one was teaching for a while until Zoom got up and running. So yes, I was doing some writing, I was doing some quilting. I do have a couple tips though. Okay, so we've got some challenge information coming up. A lot of times guilds will have me speak when they get ready to kick off a challenge, or right before they have a big reveal. But oftentimes people will ask me, how can we incentivize or encourage people to participate in the challenges? And some people, they don't want to stray too far from their comfort zone, and that's perfectly fine. So I often encourage them to try using a decorative stitch, either stitching by hand or machine, either maybe a thicker thread or something decorative, just to kind of get, inching out of your comfort zone into a challenge project, or embellish it. Try to add buttons or beads or trim or rickrack. Another way would be to modify your quilt binding, either add embellishments to that or try a different technique. Or even make, instead of having your quilt be square, maybe, it's, a little different shaped. So those are small ways to try to get some wow in your challenge without maybe venturing too far out of your comfort zone.
Cool.
Makes sense.
Awesome.
So Jill is asking, if you live in an RV, how do you manage your stash in all of your quilts?
Oh, I love that question. Okay, so I prepped before we went to Florida for 4 months, and this was the first year we went to Florida. So I gathered up and pre-cut 9 projects. Well, we were leaving Iowa, heading to Florida, and I had them all stacked in my sewing studio, and then you start tripping over them, so I kind of put them in the closet. Well, there was a big storm coming, and we knew we were going to leave within this 3-day window. Well, we left on the early side of that window. So at the last minute, we're chucking things into the car to drive it to the RV. We get to Florida, and I only have 5 of those projects. Well, I had a friend driving back to Sarasota, and so she picked up a few of them. I sent my brother into the house to try to find my projects, which is worse than having your husband try to find things in your sewing room, So I ended up with 7 out of my 9 projects down here. We have a bunk unit RV and no kids. It's just my husband and I and my dog. So my quilting stuff occupies both the top and lower bunk. I have my machine on one section and the iron and ironing board that I pull out when I need to. And then the top section is all of those quilt projects.
Wow.
And I also have room under the RV and under our bed. So I had to take kits with me to Perry, Georgia for the RV rally. So I had bags of batting. I had 2 tote bags of the kits. I had quite a bit of stuff. Now, my husband would like to go full-time in the RV. And because of my quilt stuff, I don't know that I could do that. I would have to have it all like somewhere in a storage locker and either get back to it or send somebody into it to mail stuff to me. But I've got a dinette where I'm sitting at now, and I can either have the laptop here or my sewing machine. The hard part is cutting large pieces of yardage of fabric. But I can iron in here. I can quilt in here. I actually quilted a 109 by 109 size quilt in the RV on my domestic machine here. So it's doable.
Wow, you are brave. Where does your husband keep his stuff?
What stuff does he have? He jokes that yes, I have the whole RV. He has tools and he has ladders and he has other stuff. He has a ukulele, which takes up about this much room, and so it's fair. I think that's reasonable. He is a big supporter. He loves my quilting. Like I said earlier, he's my biggest fan and beloved heckler at the back of the lectures when they were in person. He's given me a lot of good advice. There was another challenge that I did, and I can't tell you about it specifically because, but it was it was organized by Donna DeSoto, and it's called Inspired by Washington, D.C. And as I was working on this project, I have a house and a road in the picture, in the quilt. And I had my son take a picture of it. And so I know it was mathematically correct as far as the angles and everything. And I showed it to my husband, and he was like, "Oh my God, I can't even look at this. It looks like a giant battleship sinking." And I'm like, oh, "Come on! I mean, this is the early part of it. This is the early stages. I'm going to be adding a lot of other stuff." And he just kept repeating, "Oh my God, I can't look at it. I can't even look at it." Kind of like it was insulting his creative, artistic sensibilities. I'm like, "Oh, this has just gone to your head. Yes, you give me good advice, but oh my God, now you're just being ridiculous."
Well, that challenge, that entire collection of that challenge will be at Road in 2022.
Yay! Yay! Good. Yep.
Cool. And we know what you do in the mornings.
I do Zumba with Linda a couple days a week. I've missed the last 10 days because we were frantically driving back to Iowa to take care of the house and now busy taking care of the house. But yes, I try to get my exercise in, and then
your classmates are on here watching you.
Oh yeah? Yay. Yeah, then I don't feel so guilty about sitting in front of my sewing machine for hours.
Wonderful. Well, let's talk about real quick before we let you go. We're going to talk about our road challenges that were announced pre-COVID. Now, this is all pre-COVID, but they are rolling over for the next year. So the first challenge we're going to talk about is the Road Souvenir Fabric Challenge. Now, this challenge has no size limits on it, but you have to use the predominantly of my wonderfully beautiful Road Souvenir fabric. It is very Road to California. We've got pictures of vendors on it, picture of the lecture room. We've got the winning quilts on the fabric. Of course, you can't have a Road to California fabric without the California poppy and the Road logo. So that's the Road to California Fabric Challenge. Now, the only place you can actually get that fabric is from us. So the website is road2ca.com, and you can get the fabric on the website. So the second challenge we came up with is, and actually we announced this in January, but again, pre-COVID, was our Twins Quilt Challenge. And the Twins Quilt Challenge is inspired by my twin boys, who were born in April. So they are little COVID babies, and they are almost a year old now. On April 14th, they will be a year old. And that challenge has a size limitation. I believe Jillian is nodding her head. I think it's 60 by 60 on that one, but I'm not sure. Yes. It's 60 by 60. And the last one is one that Stevie and I dreamed up on one of our adventures to Houston. Is a challenge about conspiracies. So we have a conspiracy quilt challenge. That one is a considerably smaller quilt. I believe it's 30 by 30. And that one, the only thing off limits is politics. But everything else is free game. UFOs, aliens, whatever you want to talk about on conspiracies, that is it. And all three of those challenges, the application form and entry form will be live online after Road at Home in May, so probably look for somewhere around July. We'll get the information back on the website sooner than that, just so you can see the abstracts and the rules. But so long as we're back in person, we'll have the challenge quilts back up.
Okay, I've got some tips. So the first one with the fabric challenge, I recommend you get twice as much fabric as you think you will need. And the reason is you will get it and you'll decide, you might think you're going one direction with it, and then you might decide you want just that poppy flower predominant. And so it's better to have all the fabric you need before it's, not available, or you're halfway through the project and you realize you need more, and then you have to wait for more to come. So always get twice as much as you need. I've learned the lesson the hard way in challenges and I've also participated in, some of my friends might be out there who participated in one of the cherrywood fabrics challenges, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, we need more. We can't get it. So I'm divvying up my extra and sending, I haven't used the pink, I'll send it to you. I haven't used this one, I'll send it to you. So get more fabric. And then on the twins with the size, anything with a size, and I've learned this the hard way too. I have designed things, and I got a quilt here. But anyway, measure and remeasure your design. I had planned one sunflower challenge. It was called, my title for my sunflower was Bohemian Sunflower. And I designed it with multiple quadrants, and it was going to be 72 by 72. Well, the max circumference was 144. And anybody doing basic math will know I had a big problem with that. But I got so carried away with my design idea, I was just working and working and working. And finally somebody said, Diane, how many of those blocks are you making? You know, and I said, well, it's going to be a 72 by 72. She goes, Diane, 144 is 36, 36, 36, 36. So everybody double check the math on your total circumference versus your quilt design so that you still have something that you can use and enter into the challenge.
Perfect. Well, those are some great tips.
Yeah.
You have a quilt to show us here before we let you go, don't you?
I do. So one, this quilt behind me is a modified, I'm sorry, Quilt As You Go Hexie, and it's a class that I teach. And I was using leftover. Again, I challenge myself. If the challenge has one limit, I usually add 3 more things to make it harder for myself because I'm crazy. This was leftover fabric from something, and I used it as my center. And it hangs behind me when I'm in the RV and I do lectures. Oftentimes people will ask me about it. It's just a creative way to use leftover blocks with this Quilt As You Go hexie technique. So I mentioned the Bohemian Sunflower where I made way too many blocks for that quilt challenge. Well, I was able to size it, pull 4 of the blocks together to meet the challenge requirement. And I finally used the rest of the blocks. And this is now called Bohemian Sunflower Bouquet. Like I was really planning a series project.
Oh, look at that. That's gorgeous.
So it's a modified Valerie Wells pattern, and I added some beaded ribbon here. My husband actually likes the back part better because you can really see the quilting
Oh, yeah.
on that
Wow,
side.
that's awesome.
So anyway, again, that was a mistake. I overmade way too many blocks, and I salvaged it, putting it into something else, you know, a couple years later. So.
Perfect. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. Great tips for challenges. So make
Yes,
sure you take those tips to heart.
Yes, and everybody participate. I hope that I've inspired you to participate in this challenge, the Road to California challenge, and other ones out there. So have fun, be creative, stay safe.
Thanks,
Great.
Diane.
Thank you, Diane. And now we're going to switch over to Stevie, who has a great product review brought to you by Bowen. So go ahead. Let's get Stevie's product review.
Good morning on this rainy day in Virginia. I hope the rest of you don't have snow or anything really drastic. But today for my review, I am going to review 2 products from the Bowen France company. That's why I'm wearing my Paris shirt, so that I'm in tune. So, and I want to thank my cameraman, Randy, my first husband. Okay, the first thing I want to show you is the needle threader by Bowen. There is a magnet on the bottom that will hold your needles. There is a thread cutter right here, so after you have threaded your needle, you can thread cut it. Now that's not, so sorry for the jerky camera. On this needle threader, the large hole is for bigger needles and larger threads. This size is for regular sewing needles. It will not do number 12 needles, but it does 11s. My favorite needle is a Bowen 11 applique. So I'm drop it down, hole down into that hole, and pull out some thread. I'm going to lay it down right next to the little chimney part, and I can feel it grab, and I can kind of hear it. Push the button, there's a little loop right there, pull it out, and it's threaded. Then I can use the cutter to cut it. So it's so easy. It's worth the real estate to put that in your sewing case, either at home or if you're traveling or going to a bee, whenever we get to do our bees again and be with our friends. So the next item I want to show you is the fine line chalk pencil that Bowen sells. It comes with an extra set of, let's call it lead. It's not lead, it's actually chalk with no wax in it. Bowen also sells a larger version of the chalk pencil, but I use this occasionally, but the one I usually use probably 80% of the time is the fine line chalk pencil. So always test when you use any kind of marking on the surface of a quilt. So it comes with white, and that's the one I use the most. The other color I use is gray, which looks like a pencil lead color gray. The refills come in gray, yellow, pink, and green, and white. But since it comes with an extra white, you will find that it lasts a long time. So to use it, the trick to using any of these is not to have the lead portion all the way out like that, because you'll break it. So you push it back in till it's out just a little bit, and it certainly will make a mark. If I want to trace around a template, you'll recognize my UFO from the other week. I use this to not only mark sewing lines, but also if I'm doing an embroidery. Let's say I wanted to embroider my name, then I would write on it and I would embroider my name. And because there's no wax in it, it will come off. If it's not coming off fast enough, there is an eraser at the end of the chalk pencil, and Bowen also sells a large eraser. And this doesn't leave nasty red stuff on your fabric. I haven't found an issue with it not coming out, but again, as I said, always test. I know that this white's going to come out all the time, so I don't test. And sometimes when you do as I say, not as I do, because I get in a rush and forget to do some things. So that is it for our Bowen products, and I will see you again next week. Bye. Hello.
Oh, that's a nice pencil.
It's a great pencil. I have them scattered throughout the house. The only problem with that pencil is that when I pick it up and I try to write a note on a white piece of paper, it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, that could be. Mm-hmm.
Yes, because regular pencils seem to have legs in my house. They walk and they disappear. They disappear.
Very nice touch with the shirt.
Yes. I bought this shirt to wear working in the Bowen booth in Houston. I have been to Paris, but the Bowen factory is actually in Normandy, which is a great place to visit for a couple of different reasons. Certainly the beaches in Normandy is a wonderful place to visit. Now, also the castle, Mont Saint Michel, so that you can walk. It's like on an island. You can walk out. It's a great part of France. So one of the things is when Diane was talking about challenges, I wanted to mention that in 2015, Matt and I did a challenge, which was an invitational challenge we actually had a list of people that we invited to do this challenge. And the challenge was to design an app in quilt form. And the size restrictions were 36 by 36, but they had to have rounded corners because that's what an app on your phone looks like. It's rounded. So I just happened to have one that was close by that I could show. And it's one that was actually inspired by my son and daughter-in-law who had one child off at college. That child is left home. There's two that are going into college. Well, one's in college. The other one will be going in September. But because of COVID, they've got both those kids at home. And so they probably wouldn't relate to this one as much. But this is... So they don't even want to hear from those kids at this point. But it was inspired by the easy button. Whoops. Easy button. Easy this way.
That was easy.
So that's what and Matt and I had a great time with this challenge, and it actually went to the museum at the Bowen factory. So that was pretty exciting. It's really exciting trying to figure out how to mail those things across country or out of the country. Mm-hmm. So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Stevie.
All righty. Oh, the Oreo. All right. This one is titled "Your Seam Allowance is Just One Oreo Width Away." So just put your Oreo down on your machine and it gives you, I don't know, 1.5 inches.
Well, let's bring Matt back, and I have a tip. You don't want to miss this.
Linda has a tip. Okay, Linda, let's hear your tip.
But it's starting where, especially in Florida and California, that we can go outside and we can have some barbecues and stuff. And you may have a beverage. But you also may have some bugs. So I took my beverage, and I want anybody to notice that the glass is empty. Right? It's not 3 o'clock here. It's not happy hour time in Florida yet. So if you take a cupcake, not that I'm a big baker, if you take a cupcake,
paper
that wraps the cupcakes, and you put it over the top of your glass. I'm not a. Right. You take a cupcake doohickey and put your straw in there. You will have a bug-free beverage.
Linda, is that the only reason why you have cupcake liners in your house?
Yeah.
Not for making actual cupcakes?
I do make cupcakes once in a while, but I always forget the paper thing.
So, yeah, the cupcake liner. Now, what would be really great is if you use your cupcake liner with your Road to California wine glass of a stemless design, so it's much easier to take out on the barbecue patio with you.
Yes, and I could take that in my pool.
Yes, you could. But actually, what's one better than to take in your pool is the Road to California tumbler with the plastic sippy cup lid.
Sippy cups work for me.
Yes, so you close the lid and no bugs will get in your drink.
And that'll hold a lot of wine.
Oh, that I don't know, Linda. That's a lot of wine. Perfect. Well, speaking of cookies, I've got a picture to show. My wife has about ended her maternity leave. Actually, she'll be starting back to work on Monday, but she has been providing baked goods. So she baked these chocolate chip cookies the other day that, no joke, are probably the best chocolate chip cookies I have ever had.
She'll have to make some for me in January.
Well, I'll let you talk to her about that because I think she'll be on a later episode of It's So Road.
Yes. We have an episode of It's So Road coming that nobody has done before. Nobody. And it's going to be awesome. And all our viewers will be able to participate.
Absolutely. One hint, though, it probably involves our spouses.
So you'll get to meet all these mystery people behind the scenes that tolerate us. Yeah.
Perfect. Jill's expecting samples.
Don't go there.
You can get the recipe off of the Magnolia Table Cookbook by Joanna Gaines, and you could sample them yourself. So perfect. I think it's time that we kick off the UFO graveyard.
Oh, what do we have this week?
What do we have today? All right, this quilt here is made by Mary Jane, and it's a classmate signature quilt. The description is, I had classmates from our 50th class reunion back in 2011, so she's getting ready for her 60th, sign pieces of fabric so I could make a signature quilt. When I got home, I put the signatures in the black and white fabric in a drawer, planning on making them into a quilt soon. 10 years go by, and I finally decided it was time to actually get started and maybe be able to take the quilt to our 60th reunion this year and display it. I actually started making the signatures and the blocks and starting to put all the blocks into a quilt. In January, I've got pretty far, but not finished yet. Because I had a lot of signatures, this is going to be a queen-sized quilt. This picture of the quilt folded together in several pieces so it would fit on my design board so I could place the flowers in the corner. The flowers are being appliqued, and so far I only have the top left corner together. I thought I had purchased enough of the black and white fabric in 2011, but turned out I had more signatures than I had black and white fabric to put them all together. Thankfully, I was able to purchase more fabric that is really close to the original, but not as much black as the original. So I had to change the way I was putting everything together. It's turning out really neat, and I think my classmates are going to enjoy seeing their signatures from the 2011 reunion. So that's what Mary Jane has to say. Now, this is an interesting quilt. Back when I got married in 2014, I got the year right. That's important. My wife made a ton of blocks, yellow, gray, and white blocks, and that was our signature book. You know, like whatever book thing you write messages to the happy couple in. So I can tell you this quilt is much farther along than that one is.
Okay. Well, and she did mention that she didn't finish the applique, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I would.
And
I would
the fold in the middle isn't this cool modern kind of off-center style. I think that's just because the quilt is so big, it doesn't fit on the design wall. I think that's what she was mentioning.
Okay, well, I would definitely finish the applique. There's no question. And
I think this quilt, most importantly, needs to have a detailed label on the back of the quilt.
Yeah.
Because especially considering it's a signature quilt, and there's a lot of signature quilts out there with no clue what the meaning is behind them, I would finish it. I like the applique details, and I would get a really nice label embroidered or professionally printed, and even the whole backing could be a professionally printed thing you can get from Spoonflower with the story about it. Maybe she has an original class photo. That would be nice. That would be pretty cool. Scan it into the computer and have it printed off on Spoonflower for the backing of the quilt. And for those of you that don't know, Spoonflower is like a on-demand fabric printing company. You could send them images and design your own fabric to be printed off and shipped to you.
Yeah, so clearly this is a memory. So this is a definite stitch it.
Absolutely. This one's very important to finish. There's good meaning behind it. All right. Number 2. Let me unlock this crazy device here. Number 2 is made by Jennifer and not my wife, Jennifer. And the project name is Oh My Gosh.
Yeah.
Tried something different, and I wanted to get out of this world quilt. I wanted an out of this world quilt. Thinking I need to add a few more blocks and maybe use black as the background, liven up the material, help.
Yeah. Okay. The first thing, I like the colors. I like these colors. I think it's a happy looking quilt. I might see if I could find a white or a cream with some multicolored dots and make this quilt square, because it can be very difficult, especially, we don't know your skill level. It could prove difficult to bind if you quilted it just as is. So I would try to make this as square as you possibly could with like some half blocks. And I would like the white with some dots. I might not do a solid. I might put a little multicolored action in there.
Linda, this is where I disagree with you. I think this quilt is begging and screaming for the maker to take on the challenge and practice on this quilt on that difficult binding technique, because this thing would be so cool. It's so happy. It doesn't need anything else. It doesn't need half blocks or borders or anything. Bind it or quilt it, bind it as is. I think it would be an awesome quilt. Definitely not necessarily one you'd put on a bed with the odd shape, but definitely a cool quilt that you'd hang on the wall.
Yeah,
I
agree with you. If my skills were such that I would bind that. I mean, I don't do my own binding anyway, so I shouldn't talk.
Challenge yourself. Why not? I mean, bind it as is and challenge yourself. Why not? Go for it.
I want it done before I die.
Well, Linda, why don't you give it a shot? Linda, I challenge you, Linda. And this is dangerous because if you challenge me to do something, that's never going to happen. But I challenge you to bind something that's not square. And don't bind by your American Express card.
Oh.
Yeah, you could cut it into a vest or a jacket. I know that's. I'm not so certain that that's a new thing. I mean, that's kind of reckoning back to the wearable art days. But I think that would be a really neat kind of almost like a trench coat looking thing. It'd be really wild. Yellow. You could yellow for the binding would be interesting, but I would almost, depending on if she had enough of that fabric, I would have the binding be multicolored around that. Add more happy to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even a stripe, multicolor stripe.
Yeah, that new rage. Everything old is new again. There we go. See, we're coming back full circle here. Well, perfect. Well, these two entrants, Jennifer and Mary Jane, got entered into winning a free class with Linda Hahn, including the kit fee that I'm paying for, and a seat in Roundabout 2.0. So if you want to get entered to win, send your UFO in on the Google form. Also, they each received a free downloadable pattern from Linda, so you have nothing to lose.
No, you can win.
Exactly. Get your UFO into us. We promise we will be nice. But I voted on both of those today. I think they should stitch them, Linda.
I would stitch both of them. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Perfect. So next week, Linda, who do we have coming on next week on It's So Road?
Next week is Lee Chapel Monroe.
Yes, Lee is one of our Road at Home May teachers. So I highly suggest you sign up for her classes tomorrow because they do fill up quickly. However, if you are interested and you want to kind of get to know Lee a little bit, it's the perfect opportunity. She'll be on here. Jillian's going to pop up here and screen share a little bit of her class photos for you before we let you go. But I can tell you, Lee is an awesome teacher. She has fantastic classes. Let's take a look at these classes real fast. Understanding the Rainbow and Applying Color Theory, that's a fantastic class. That's all about learning about color. Oh, that's a lecture. So sign up for that lecture, easy in, easy out. Blue Ridge Flying Geese, we love our flying geese here at Road. Making a Dresden, that's all about Dresdens. And Understand the Rainbow, is that one the class or is that one the lecture? That one's the class. So she has a lecture about color, then she has a class about color as well. And then she has a Tips of the Trade. These Tips of the Trade classes, lectures taught by Lee are amazing. Don't miss them. Perfect. Well, we have our full lineup set up here for April. We'll be announcing starting next week, and I hope you stick with us. And make sure you sign up for classes on Road at Home May starting tomorrow.
And we will, if you're not familiar with Zoom, we will be having another Zoom training. Or if you want a little refresher or you would like some help with Zoom, we will be having that. And like Matt said, we'll announce all our guests for April. And if there's somebody you'd like us to bring on, please let us know. Or if there's a product that you'd like Stevie to review, please let us know so that we can reach out and make this something that's informative for you. Because we're here for you.
Exactly. Well, perfect. Well, I thank all of you for joining us. Stay safe, wear your masks, and until we meet again. Bye-bye.